When it hits your lips. Good morning, everybody. It is October 30th. One more day of this beautiful month and a gorgeous fall Saturday morning, Austin. Of course, I'm your boy Duke, along with Austin Mock, Mr. 14-6 last week. We're not going to talk about my record. We don't want to talk about it. Focus on you, buddy. How we doing this morning?
Good, yeah, 14-6. I had a couple bad weeks in a row, or it's just things didn't go my way. I finally did well during a night slate for the first time in what seemed like all year. So 14-6 was nice. Hoping to keep it going. We have a fantastic slate of college football today. So huge playoff implications. This should be a great one.
And really good, like games per time slot too. It's a bring the cooler to the couch kind of day. And let's start in Louisiana. Cincinnati heading down to Tulane. 5-2 against the spread this year. Tulane 2-5 against the spread. I don't know what that means a whole hell of a lot here, but Cincinnati 24.5 point favorite, 61.5 on the total. We've been talking about this kind of continuously, Austin, how Cincinnati is almost treating it like the BCS area where they got to get some style points on there, and they have been. Just cover machines on a big number, but the 1-6 green and wave were just shit on by SMU. I think the same thing is going to happen here. I like Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati needs to. There's so many teams at the top, right? There's a possibility of a Big Ten team, like a Michigan, if you will, if they lose a close game to Ohio State at the end of the year, that could have an argument. Cincinnati needs to score it. Last week's game against Navy, they won by 7. I don't know how that's going to sit well with people, but before that, they were absolutely blowing people out. They were covering totals by themselves. I am going to go against it again today. It's tough. I hate it subjectively, but I'll take Tulane plus 24.5 here.
It's a big number, man. It's a lot of points to cover.
Yeah.
You mentioned national championship implications. Let's talk about this game. Michigan at Michigan State. I'm wondering how much you're considering the fact this is in East Lansing versus the big toilet bowl that you guys have over there in Ann Arbor. Should be beautiful weather, noon kickoff, Big Ten football. I don't know. To me, I think Michigan's the better football team. I think they're the better coached team, but I cannot bring myself to lay these points on the road. So I'm just taking points. No one's going to want to give this thing up. I'm taking over 50.5.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup here. If Michigan State gets explosive plays, Michigan's given up some explosive plays. See the Nebraska game. I think Michigan State can flat out win this game. If Michigan can score inside the red zone, they've kind of had some scoring issues, scoring touchdowns in the red zone. I think Michigan can easily win this game. The really only thing that would surprise me would be like Michigan State winning by a lot, because Michigan plays the type of game where they can control it. Nobody's really stopped them running the ball that much this year. This is a lot of points. I think, at 4, maybe even 3, this is probably 2. I wouldn't be even in thinking about this spread, but with 4.5, I think this has backdoor potential here. These games are always close. Michigan's not really either team really is not really meant to blow anybody out. I'll take Sparty plus 4.5 here.
Going against your boys. Michigan's won the last 2 in East Lansing. He's getting the points. Yeah, if it was like a pick 'em, I'd be all over Michigan, but
right. It's just a lot of points. Like, sure, they can win by 7, but they could be up 10 and Michigan State makes this, late touchdown that doesn't really mean much. And all of a sudden, Michigan State's got the cover.
Big week for Big Ten implications here. Big week for multiple TVs in the Midwest, because we got Iowa at Wisconsin, also in that 12 o'clock window there. Wisconsin, 3-point favorites here at home, 36.5 on the total. Wisconsin kind of written off for dead earlier in the season. Horrible game against Penn State. I think we got to what was the final score? 3-2, something like that, like a World Series baseball score there. But Iowa struggling, man, but they're coming off that bye week. They lost to Purdue. I think they're going to have a little bit of motivation here. I'm worried about the turnovers, Austin. I think we saw, 3 turnovers in that Iowa-Penn State game. I'm wondering if we see about the same here. If we do, the lowest total of the day, 36.5, could be tested, but I'm going to back the Badgers here at home. Happy wife, happy life. She loves the Wisconsin Badgers. Let's go Badgers.
Yeah, this is probably the lowest total of the year so far, if I remember correctly. I don't think we've gotten there. This is like I don't even know if Army Navy get to this low, but I think it's justified. Both of these teams can't really do anything on offense, and both teams have probably top 5 defenses in college football. I've been kind of like getting yelled at all year because I thought Iowa, even before Iowa lost to Purdue 2 weeks ago, that I thought Wisconsin would be favored in this game, and here we are, and they're a 3-point favorite, possibly. 3.5 has been dangled out there as well. So I'm going with the Badgers here. I think they're the better team. Iowa cannot move the ball. Like as bad as
They have no
Wisconsin,
offense.
yeah, as bad as Wisconsin's offense has been, Iowa's has been worse. Like we look at Wisconsin's loss, they lost to Penn State, in which they fumbled twice inside the 2, or they would have beat a Penn State team with a fully healthy Sean Clifford. They lost to Notre Dame, in which they turned the ball over 14,000 times, like threw 2 pick sixes, all these things, right? They gave Notre Dame the game. They outplayed them in every way. And then they just got flat out beat by a Michigan team. But okay, now we're talking about a playoff team. Technically, all 3 of those teams were playoff teams until Clifford got injured. So I think Wisconsin's the better team here. Iowa, I just don't see them moving the ball much on the road here. So I'm going with the Badgers.
I miss Brad Banks. Iowa doesn't have one athletic quarterback that can just run around, drop back, and take off. I mean, what are we doing here? Anyways, we're staying in the 12 o'clock window here. Texas at Baylor. We had a 36.5-point total. Now we got 61. We'll go the opposite side. These teams combined for 928 yards of offense and nearly 80 points per game when it comes to averages. To me, I think it comes down to kind of power ranking Baylor's defense against Oklahoma State's, right? I think they're similar. I see a similar game flow there. And so 61 is a big number. I'm going under 61.
Yeah. This was interesting because Baylor was like -1.5. And I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, Texas is a dog against Baylor. Baylor's not that good, blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden Baylor's the one that has caught the money. I like Baylor here. I think this number, I make it a little bit closer to 3 here. I lean this way. Texas is again, I don't know what, like, this is the typical Texas season, right? Like nothing's changed. I know it's year 1 of Stark. I'm not going to hold him to it, but like, okay, yeah, this, like, we're all excited about this team. This team got smoked by Arkansas. They blew a 28-7 lead against Oklahoma. I know they changed quarterbacks, and then they lost to Oklahoma State. Baylor, Dave Aranda, I don't know if his name's going to be thrown around for LSU or not. I haven't heard it, which is kind of interesting to me. But I think Baylor is legit here. They're at home. I'll take the Bears under a field goal here.
Baylor, like, sneaky good job. Good recruiting base.
Yeah,
Awesome
well, you're in
stadium.
Texas. Like, how bad can it get? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many players
Todd.
there. So.
Waco, Chip, and Joanna. You got it all. All right, let's talk about Miami, Florida against Pittsburgh. Big game here for Pittsburgh, who is in the top of the ACC standings. Miami coming in off that huge win over NC State. I was wrong. I can say it. But how about the schedule for Miami? Tough, but this is only their second away game of the year, and they lost the other one. Lost to basically any team with a pulse, and then they beat NC State. I'm not sure what to make of this Miami team here, but Pittsburgh, 9 points with this offense, 61 on the total. So maybe we're expecting some points here, but am I crazy for taking Miami and taking the points here?
I don't think so. I think it's a fair line. Miami's been weird. Like they benched D'Eriq King. We had talked about it earlier in the year. We didn't think he was exactly healthy. They've looked better. They played some wild games. I think the last 3 games have been combined scoring margins of like 6 points. So everything's coming down to the wire here. Pitt, this could obviously letdown spot. I know Clemson's not that good this year, but like biggest win of the Narduzzi era at Pitt here. So could see them coming out a little slow. I think Pitt's defense can slow down Miami. Now Miami's defense is super, like they're just not disciplined. You can run into some problems with Miami, like in a bunch of penalties and just missed tackles. I think against like Michigan State, they had like 35 missed tackles or something. That's my worry here, but a little bit of a letdown spot. I'm going under 61 in this one. I think, Kenny Pickett in his, I think he's 3rd in the Heisman in odds right now. I think this is a little bit of a slow game here, but Pitt keeps their playoff hopes alive. Let's see if they can overcome that loss to Western Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, they got Miami, Duke, UNC, UVA, who's like decent this year. Then Syracuse. Right. Setting up for a nice run for Pitt, but they got to get through Miami first. I think we can both win that one, by the way. I like a low-scoring game for getting 9 points. Let's do that. How about 2 o'clock, Iowa State and West Virginia? Kind of a standalone, weird start time here. And look, I knew 7 points was too many. Iowa State wins the game, but I knew that was too many points. Late touchdown obviously takes the lead, seals the win. I do think this one stays close in particular. West Virginia had success kind of stopping the run against Oklahoma, kept that game close. Obviously, Breece Hall, monster, 11 TDs. Him and like Travion Henderson are going back and forth as far as going off. If they can keep this is my stat of the day. If they can keep Breece Hall under 4 yards per carry, I think they keep this within a touchdown. So I like West Virginia at home, 7-point dogs here, 48.5 on the total. I like West Virginia to stay inside a touchdown here.
I'm with you. I think West Virginia. This is too many. I bet Iowa in this contest. I think I made Iowa State like 7.3 last week, but I took them last week and they didn't quite pull it out. And this is the typical Iowa State team, right? Like they're not talented. They're well coached. They're well developed, but like eventually talent like kind of keeps all the games close, right? Like in West Virginia, they're kind of the same thing. I feel like they're always kind of like a thorn in people's side. They, almost upset Oklahoma earlier in the year. Just on the road here, big win for Iowa State last week. Again, you could get into the letdown spot here a little bit, but I am again going with the dog here. 7 points, just a little bit too much here for West Virginia in this one.
How about Wazoo heading to Arizona State here, 3:00? I guess 12 out west for these guys, but they put up a good fight against BYU. A little bit of a surprising fight considering they fired most of the staff here, but I think that says more about BYU than it does Washington State. We'll talk about BYU here in just a little bit. But Herm Edwards, this is his first real hurdle with this team. Lost to Utah. I think they're both sitting at 3-1 right now. There's really no more room for error for this Arizona State team. And Utah, to me, was just a horrible matchup for Arizona State. They run the ball a ton. Wazoo is the total opposite, just sling the pigskin all over the place. I think they can handle them, but this is just a lot of points for both teams. Arizona State, I think, could cover the number. It's a big number, but I think both teams score. I'll take over 53.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I'm staying away from the total in this one. I think this is too many points. I think it's kind of the same thing again. We're kind of inflating the number with the whole coaching staff issue. Obviously, they played well last week. Again, BYU is not a great team, but it's one of those things where, like, I could go on the other end of the spectrum and say, like, the whole Rolovich situation was the distraction for the Washington State team, right? Like, you can paint the narrative however you want. This week, I'm going to paint it because I'm taking Washington State plus 15. I'm going to paint it that it was a distraction, and now that's been lifted off of their shoulders. I'm sure next week that I'll be against them, and then I'll say that the coaching staff is a mess and all that. So I'm playing the narrative here. My narrative, I guess, the one I'm painting. Washington State, I think this is too many points. I like this Arizona State team, but it's just, again, it's a lot of points for this. These Pac-12 teams, they just like to play close games. So I'll take plus 15.
Interesting. All right, let's go to maybe the largest cocktail party in the world. I know we're not allowed to call it that anymore, but UGA, Florida, UGA 14-point favorites here, 51 on the total. Forget JT Daniels versus Stetson Bennett. This UGA team, I think, officially is in don't screw it up mode. That's my only worry here, Austin, because they're far and away the best team in the country today. I'm not saying they're going to be in December and January. Today, they're far and away the best team in the country. I think the only goal here is to win. So the 2 touchdowns is a tough number. But I saw the Florida head coach doing TikToks with his wife, doing dances this week. You want to talk about distractions? You got UGA on the schedule. We don't have time for TikToks, all right? Mullen, give me UGA. I'll lay the 14. I think they win big.
Admittedly, I did not see the TikToks before right now. You have that piece of info. It's an advantage, but I don't know. He's having a good time. Maybe the players like it. Dan Mullen here, I feel like he's the kind of coach that gets his team up for the bigger game. Like, they kind of play down at their competition. It seems like they've been doing this for some time at Florida. Alabama, right? They're right there, 2-point conversion away from possibly going to overtime.
Blowing on the first half, though, right?
Right. I mean, it's whatever. But Georgia. So here's the thing. I still go back to this. Georgia has not been pressured on offense yet. I don't know what their offense can do. I keep going back to this, and people are telling me, like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, first game of the year, they beat Clemson 10-3. You're telling me that I'm supposed to think a team that beat Clemson 10-3. I know it was early. I'm not saying it's definite. I still think I believe Georgia's the best team in the country. Don't get me wrong. But it still sits wrong with me. Like, I know the defense is great. I'm not saying that they should have scored 100 points, but they scored 3. There was an interception return for a touchdown in that game. JT Daniels threw for like 4.5 yards per attempt. Just makes me nervous. Florida, I think Dan Mullen has this offense. I think he pulls out a lot of stuff. His seat's getting a little bit warm. I'm not going to say it's hot by any means, but there's a little bit of pressure being mounting there. So I think Florida keeps this within 14. It scares the crap out of me. I'm taking this because Georgia probably wins this game like 38-10. But I just think Florida can score. They're dynamic. They're 2 quarterbacks. It's tough to game plan for. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'll take Florida plus 14.
What a spin zone. They have 2 quarterbacks. It's tough to game plan for.
It is.
Jones can't throw a football forward. This defense is going to kill him. Anthony Richardson, the freshman, LSU picked him off twice. That defense couldn't stop a bank robber with no legs.
Here's the thing: Florida is the best offense that they've faced. Georgia's faced so far. Like I read through this, and I talked with Frank this week on Opening Line about this. Like Florida, most times offense wins out, right? Like I'm not saying that because Florida has the better offense or a similar offense that they'll be able to score here, but like it's so hard to play defense well for so long, and I think this is the toughest test by a good amount. Like, what are we gonna say? Arkansas is the best offense, or Auburn? Like Bo Nix, we're really gonna be excited about Bo Nix here. So, I think this is the toughest offense. Georgia maybe gives up some points. I think Florida. Like, what if Florida goes down first drive 7-0? Can Georgia? Are they? Do they stick to their game plan, or they have to start throwing? I don't know.
Stetson Bennett, baby, sling.
He hasn't thrown one pass this year with hit with sweat yet. He's just like dropping back, like, oh yeah, okay, like no problem. But I like Florida here. +4. I think it's too many. I hate the pick subjectively just because Georgia's freaking Georgia, but I don't know. I'm holding out that Georgia plays one close game before the SEC championship.
Texas Tech heads to Oklahoma here. Big favorites for the home Oklahoma Sooners. 19 points, 66.5 on the total. And what's the saying? Players F up, Austin? I think Oklahoma ran into a situation where a teenager was reading his own headlines, saw this joke of a program in front of them that is Kansas. They're literally letting people in. They're putting out radio blasts. Who the hell listens to radio anymore? Come into the stadium, guys. It's free. Like, that's where we're at.
It's a high school game. Just come on down.
So that's my thing. I think once he kind of figured this out, and we saw, obviously got coached up in the second half. They had 3 touchdown drives in the second half, under 90 seconds. And, oh, by the way, Texas Tech just fired their head coach. Not exactly after a win, by the way. Not exactly sure what's going on. Wait, did they win or lose last week?
No, they lost by 2. They
lost by 2. That's right. But 5-3, right? Decent for Texas Tech. It's a big number, but I think we kind of whipped that young quarterback back into shape in the second half last week, and they know there's no room to play around here. You cannot play in your food when you're laying 19 points. I don't think they will. I think they cover this number. 19, I'm laying it with Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm gonna paint my own narrative here.
Here we go. Paint away, buddy.
That's what I'm doing, right? I'm just giving them. I'm Picasso in it, right? I'm gonna go Texas Tech. I think I think we overrate these coaching changes like a good amount, and I know it's tough because Oklahoma had really I don't think they played bad last week. I think it was just like one of those games where it's like, all right, we're gonna go vanilla game plan. We're just gonna figure it out. And Kansas kind of just came out and socked them in the mouth a little bit, like, oh, hey, we're here. And Oklahoma scored 0 points in the first half. And then we look at the second half of that game, and it was 35-13. Yeah. That's exactly how, like, if you want to double that for 70-26, if they won that game, we wouldn't be sitting here like that's a normal Oklahoma game. So they figured it out. I think it was one of those things that go into halftime, like, all right, guys, we can't really fool around anymore. We got to actually play. And they started calling some real plays, and they figured it out. So, yeah, I'm going Texas Tech here. A little bit too much for the with the coaching firing and just Oklahoma in general. They like to play close games too. Oklahoma does this thing. They kind of play down the competition as well. I'll take Texas Tech +19.
A little bit on Lincoln Riley too. Great coach, but young coach, like kind of one of these cool dudes, kind of like Kingsbury was a little bit. I could see him being like, go have fun, guys. And then at halftime being like, all right, okay. All right. We got to score some points, though, boys. Come on. What are we You're going to get me fired.
All right, we can't have fun and lose. Yeah. So.
All right, let's talk about Colorado heading to Oregon here. Oregon, 24-point home favorites, 49 on the total. It's Colorado defense. No bueno. And I think if you take out the Arizona and Northern Colorado games, they're giving up nearly 30 points a game. So take out the 2 gimmies, Arizona. What the hell happened to that program? Take out the 2 gimmies, giving up 30 points a game. And that includes the 10-point game here against Texas A&M. So it's a big number for Oregon. I was tempted to lay it because I think they smashed Colorado, but I'm just kind of curious how Colorado scores. I know Oregon's defense isn't what we thought they were after the Ohio State game, but relatively low number, 49. Kind of has me thinking kind of a rat number. What do these people know out in the desert here? I'm going under 49.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the dog. I've been kind of down on Oregon all year. They played great against Ohio State. I think that was like their peak of their ability. And they played well last week. I'll give them credit. Like I thought they played really good against UCLA. They almost blew it. They're up up late, and UCLA made it kind of close there at the end. But Oregon's another team that plays down to their competition. They always find a way, to play a close game. I don't get it. I think they're happy winning this game by 21. And I think that's kind of where they sit before they get into. I think they have a couple. I think they have 3 tough games left. If you want to say, like, at Washington is kind of tough, at Utah and home against Oregon State. So I think Oregon's just kind of getting out of here. I think Colorado has some backdoor potential here. 24 is a big number for a team that's probably not too interested in this game. So I'll take the Buffaloes here.
Yeah, don't hate that. Another one of those where I think we could both win, but I kind of like your side, I'm being honest. All right, you know what? We're not going to bulldoze it. Let's talk about Florida State at Clemson here. We might be bulldozing Clemson. You see it? Did you hear this? Did you see this, Austin? Dabo turning on his players, saying they don't have a divine right to win. Yeah, man, that's your job. Coach them up. What is Clemson only allowed to recruit quarterbacks with like 3,000 vowels in their name? Taysom Fomachan comes in, actually got a few reps.
It's actually crazy because I think it's just like Pumachan. I think it's actually like very easy to say, but like it looks terrifying when you get there. Like if you're talking in front of people, like you start sweating before you see this name. But I was cracking up when they benched DJ and then all of a sudden they had another. I'm like, okay, I guess they can't recruit quarterbacks that don't have you have to have at least like 15 letters in your last name to play quarterback for Clemson. So
yeah, Jordan Travis I think has been pretty solid at quarterback for the Seminoles here, kind of real dual threat. And this Clemson team, and everyone hates on DJ, and they should. And he, like we talked about, I think he single-handedly ruined the NIL for future Clemson players over there. But I think Florida State covers this number, Austin, and I'm getting a little. I might say sprinkle a little money line on her for Florida State here. Put the Bulldozers away. Florida State, I think, has a hell of a day here.
Yeah, I'm going to go under. Jordan Travis has been pretty good since taking over for Milton. I know he struggled in that first game against Notre Dame, and then Milton, Florida State's been weird, and now he's been really good the last 3 games. I don't think he's been that great. Clemson's defense is still solid. They kind of they only gave up 27 to Pitt. I don't think Florida State's defense is as good as Pitt. I'm going under here. Again, we kind of have the correlating plays there. Under 47.5. Clemson, like you said, DJ gets all the blame, but like Clemson's offensive line is terrible. Their wide receivers are terrible. Like I know they had a COVID outbreak in the wide receiver room last year, but Shipley had a wide open touchdown pass that DJ threw an absolute dime, and it slipped through his hands. Like they could have been up 14-0 in that game.
Yeah.
That game totally changes on that Shipley catch. So DJ's been bad, but they're just their whole offensive unit, every skill position, quarterback, offensive line, all just a mess right now. So I'll take the under.
Under. All right. How about Duke at Wake Forest? And look, okay, all right. I can hear the peanut gallery. Duke, you really took an under 52 on a game that finished with 126 points. I actually thought it was kind of funny that both teams got over 52. I thought that was kind of cool. That was one of my worst, maybe my worst bet I've ever made.
You should get double the points for that, or double the winnings.
I think it was the Harbaugh coach Stanford team. They beat USC when they were like 28-point dogs.
It was like 39 or 40 points.
Yeah, I laid the points on that game. That was maybe my worst. But anyways, let's talk about Duke. 16.5-point dogs here at Wake Forest. This Wake Forest team's allowing 173 rushing yards per game. Army. I don't know. I think Wake Forest is just, they play so fast. We got a big total here. Duke's getting smashed by everybody. 16.5 is almost like a trap number to me. I thought this game would be closer to 20. What am I missing here, Austin? I'm taking Wake Forest.
Yeah, Wake Forest, they're weird. I don't think they're that good. They're like sneaking into this playoff conversation. It's kind of disgusts me. But here we are. So what can you do? Their offense is solid, right? They averaged 12 yards per play against Army last week, but I'm not going to take too much away from that because it's just a different level of competition, even with Duke. Like there's just, I would say, different level of athletes because Army, yes, they play a certain style of football that wins, but they're not exactly athletic as even Duke, who's a bad college football team. So I think Wake Forest can put up points. Duke's defense is terrible, but I think Wake Forest's defense is terrible as well. Duke is like kind of not scored some points. Their offense is better than what they've put out from a scoring standpoint. So I think Duke can score enough points here. I'm going over, which scares me because Wake Forest just scored 126 or whatever points that was. And I hate going with the over the next week, but I think this number's a little low. This was like 68.5 early in the week. So the numbers have been moving that way. So I'm going over.
Just for those who didn't know, Duke lost 48-0 last week to Virginia.
2 weeks ago, but they put up points. or yards, I should say yards. They do not put up points. They put up yards.
Yeah. All right. How about Ole Miss at Auburn? Let's move into the 7:00 window when the fun really
Oh, yeah.
starts and the beer starts sinking in here. What's going on with this Ole Miss defense? All of a sudden, only 25 against Tennessee, 17 against LSU. What's next? Keeping Bo Nix under 3 touchdowns? I mean, what are we doing? No chance. This is going to be a wild game, in my opinion. 66. The total's finally starting to come down a little bit for these Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss Rebels here. I'm going over 66. Let's fire, baby.
This is a bet pack play for me. I'm going under 67 to be opposite here. This was the key. I said this on opening line with Frank if you watched. Against Arkansas, Matt Corral, obviously fantastic, Heisman hopeful here. Ran the ball 15 times against Arkansas. Tennessee, he ran the ball 30 times. He was banged up in the Tennessee game. Came out against LSU last week. Ole Miss played the slowest game that they had played all year. He still ran the ball 12 times, only for 24 yards. A little bit banged up. I think Lane Kiffin knows, hey, we have to, like, Matt Corral is our team. Yeah. We have to play a little bit slower to make it through. And, like, watch out. But Ole Miss, like, if Alabama is to drop a game here somehow, like, it's possible. They lost to Texas A&M. Ole Miss all of a sudden is the driver's seat for the SEC championship game, and if they somehow pull off the upset against Georgia, hello playoff. Like they still have an outside shot at the playoffs, so this would be interesting going down the stretch here.
What are you taking? Oh, you went under.
Under.
They got Auburn, they got Liberty, Texas A&M, who's hot and cold, Vanderbilt, and Mississippi State.
Yeah, it's not the toughest schedule out there. Like they could do it.
Speaking of Mississippi State, Kentucky heads down to Starkville. 1.5-point road favorites here. 47 on the total. This is my trap line of the week, which seems silly considering it's basically like a pick 'em. But why are bigger favorites here? Like, let's be honest. Mississippi State, pretty average, and essentially already had their one big win over Texas A&M, who we just mentioned. Maybe the most inconsistent team in the country, Texas A&M. So I'm not like reading too much into that game. So is this just like Kentucky's not very good, overrated? Why are they only 1.5-point favorites? Because that's what I'm taking.
Yeah, I'm going opposite here as well. Mississippi State. I make this game basically. This was the edge I had. Basically, pick them here. I don't think Kentucky's that good. It's a weird thing. I don't think Mississippi State's all that good either. But they're at home. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Kentucky will make – Mississippi State has been figured out. This Leach offense, you just make them dink and dunk, and they'll eventually screw up. That's too many. I just can't see them getting points here. 1.5 is not that many, but I do like Mississippi State. I think Kentucky's overrated. So I think Mississippi State can kind of knock the Wildcat fan base off of – like people are talking about, like, outside shot at the freaking playoff if they went out. Need to put Kentucky fans in their place here. Mississippi State outright.
All right, Kansas at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State 30-point favorites here, 55 on the total. We saw what can happen when a team actually tries. But this Oklahoma State offense giving up 30 against anybody is kind of tough. I'm taking under 55, Austin.
Yeah, I didn't really have an edge. I made this 54.8, so I couldn't really do anything with the total. The total. I wanted to play under, but I'm going Kansas. I hate it because they just covered. Like, what are the chances Kansas covers 2 in a row?
Right.
But here we are. Oklahoma State wants to win this game like 28-0. So we'll take that.
Yeah, this is the game where if Oklahoma State blows out, Oklahoma blows out Kansas, Oklahoma State could have an Oklahoma type first half.
Right.
But the fact that they just saw it, it's like, shit.
Now we got to play a little bit tough. Yeah. We can't have fun in the first half.
How about SMU heads to Houston? Houston 1-point home favorites here against the top 25 SMU Mustangs, 62.5 on the total. Don't sleep on my Mustangs, baby. Slightest of dogs here, but then they play Memphis, UCF, and then their own national championship against UC on November 20th. Cannot wait for that. We'll get there when we get there. For this game, I see points all over the place, over 62.5.
Yeah, I'm going under. This is a huge game for
7:00 window. I got a chance. Let's go.
Right. This is dangerous for me. I'm going under. SMU does score a ton of points, which is very, very scary. But huge game for American Conference implications. I know there's a bunch of good games left this year, but both teams are undefeated in conference play. This is a pretty big one. And SMU kind of has an outside argument for the playoff if they if Cincinnati is number 2 in the country. SMU's got to be in the conversation if they get a big dub here in a couple weeks.
About Penn State heads to Columbus to take on my Buckeyes. 18.5-point favorites here. 59.5-point total. Ohio State by 1 trillion is my official play. James Franklin just being a total squid in the media. Weird answers about the USC job. Called the horseshoe, the big house. Sean Clifford's going to be playing. That's a positive for Ohio State. I'm telling you, Austin, I'm back on this Buckeye bandwagon. Ohio State big.
Yeah, Ohio State's looked great. Penn State just gave up 350 yards rushing to Illinois. No reason to think Ohio State shouldn't be able to run the ball. Ohio State tends to let Penn State hang around.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know what it is. The difference between how Ohio State plays against Penn State and how they play against Michigan is otherworld, dimensioned. It's insane. Justin Fields fumbled into the end zone 2 years ago, and kept Penn State in the game. I'm going under here. I don't think Penn State scores too many, and I think Ohio State just kind of runs the ball. We saw him shut it down against Indiana this past week. I'm going under here, 59.5.
North Carolina heads to Notre Dame here. Notre Dame 3.5-point home favorite, 62.5 on the total. This Notre Dame team is so freaking average, and realistically, they could finish the year at 11-1 and be in a tricky little playoff
deserving
spot.
But not really.
Yeah, who have they really beaten? This is a tough spot for them here, though. North Carolina, another weird team where they've been super up and down. Another team that's only on their second road game of the year, lost the home opener, the season opener to Virginia Tech, 17-10. I don't know if it can be that low a scoring game, but I think it's either North Carolina or the under here, and I landed under 62.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. Under. I think Notre Dame's defense is pretty good. North Carolina's when facing good defenses has kind of slowed down a little bit. Their offensive line's had some problems. I think Notre Dame can cause some issues here. Notre Dame's offense never is exactly fun. They're still trying to figure out their quarterback health and everything. Cohen's back, but is he healthy? I don't know. So I'll go under 62.5 here.
Virginia heads to BYU, 2.5-point road dogs here from my Virginia Cavaliers. Straight up, I think they're the better team. I'm sure they want their North Carolina loss back because they'd have a real shot at the title game for the ACC if they hadn't. But offense, no problem. They're not going to have a problem getting theirs. Can BYU keep up? Who cares? I'll take Virginia.
Yeah, I'm going under. I don't think BYU's offense is as good as what we think. I know Virginia they throw the ball a ton, so that's scary to play their unders. But I think 63.5 is too many. I'll play the under here. I don't think BYU is scoring too many points in this one.
And our final game of the day, Fresno State takes on San Diego State. 1-point home favorites here, 44.5 on the total. Everyone's talking about this UGA defense, and for good reason. But how about the Aztecs, man? Allowing just 15 points per game. And honestly, I think this number should be lower. Kind of collapsed in the fourth quarter against Utah, giving up 14 points. Yeah. Let them come from behind, add in the touchdown in overtime. Yeah. I think it's another pick'em game that could end up in kind of a slugfest. I can't finish with an under, especially with a low total. I'm going over 44.5.
I'm going San Diego State. Brady Hoke back in San Diego State, and they're playing, fantastic football. Huge game for Mountain West. This is the two top teams in the West Division out there. So if you're turning on tonight at 10:30, you want something good to watch, this is a very good game for a group of five. But I'm going San Diego State here. I think they get the win.
There you go. 20 games in the books. Try to keep it efficient for you guys. It's been a fun show. As always, I am Duke. He is Austin. If you haven't yet, please go over and download the Betcha app. Use code ELITE up to a $100 match with your first deposit. Super easy prop game. It's fun to play. Overs, unders. You can do college football, hockey, pro football. There's all kinds of different options over there. As soon as they add some soccer and MMA, I'll be all over it, boys.
Yep.
Any final words to let the folks get out of here on this beautiful Saturday, Austin?
Nope. Good luck today. Good luck with your bets. Good luck tomorrow, NFL. Good luck always. And hopefully I can have another good week of night games. So
14-6 last week. Adios.